Okay, I should be live. Can everybody hear me? Do we have anybody in the chat? On this fine Tuesday night. I can't believe it's only Tuesday. I feel like we're at the end of the week. Elijah, what's up, my man? Nothing much. Nothing much on my end. How are you doing today? Having a nice, relaxing time. Outlaw Ripoff Artist, welcome, welcome. Mr. Gov, welcome aboard. Melissa Hernandez, welcome. Nice to see you. Welcome aboard. Is Doug doing a stream right now too? Well, I guess he's gonna get more people watching this, as always. But it's no, it's cool. It's cool that Doug is still doing it. He always seemed like a really cool guy to me. True Slayer's back to doing streams and stuff like that. FT Legend, welcome. Yes, I am a nerd. I am indeed a nerd. How is the new NXT? Because I'll be honest, I didn't watch it. Clark Herman, welcome. Hello there. Let me see something. Okay. Best of Sting DVD as well as Goldberg's DVD on eBay. Ooh. Lots of good stuff there. I actually don't have either one of those. You'd think I would have them, considering I was a big fan of both. Back in the classic WCW days. The NXT logo gives me color out of space vibes. It's an ugly logo. The comment I made is that it looks like the 60s and the 90s vomited on each other. Tommaso Ciampa won the title. Okay. I forgot he was still there, to be honest. Is it fair to say that I'm a WWE fan but not a wrestling fan? I don't watch any other promotion. I mean, that's a fair statement to make. You're just a WWE fan. Sorry, I got a fly in my face. I was a fan of Goldberg back in the day, back in the height of the streak. I was a huge fan. I'm actually kind of digging the NXT logo with its burst of color. It's too many colors for me. I can't handle it. It's just like, oh my god, that thing looks like an eyesore. Looks like it was made out of the New Foundation's pants. Big E won the WWE title. Seriously? How did I not know about this? I swear to God, I didn't know. Was it a Money in the Bank cash-in? Because I didn't know. Did he win Money in the Bank? I swear, this is the first time hearing about it. This is news to me. I did not know that Big E won the title last night. Looks like something out of a Disney TV show. That's not great. Don't be a homophobe. The logo is fine. What does being a homophobe have to do with not liking the logo? Those two things don't seem congruent. I can hate a logo and still be fine with the LGBTQ people. He cashed in on Lashley, sadly. You didn't watch Raw last night. I haven't watched Raw all year. I was watching Monday Night Football. The Ravens and the Raiders had a pretty damn good game. Yeah, it's what happens when I don't pay attention. Yep. And here, you want to hear something even worse and how out of touch I am with WWE? I didn't even know that Big E won Money in the Bank. This is the first time hearing about it. Do you remember that Goldberg-Giant match where Goldberg jackhammered the Giant? You mean every match they had? Because every time they were in the ring together, I think they did that spot. There was the one on Nitro. I definitely remember that one. But then there was the one at that like weird Bash of the Beach Battle Royal match. And I think they did it one other time, too. Oh, B-Slim81, I see that you're here. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. So how's everybody doing? Before I get into the major things that I want to talk about here, which are AEW All Out, which I'm a week and a half late behind the times, but so much big stuff happened at that show that I feel like I need to talk about it and talk about the potential future of AEW moving forward with what they pulled off at that show. And I have a bunch of movies that I watched this summer that I want to review and give to you guys, which I planned on doing at the last live stream, but ultimately didn't get to. In fairness to WWE, they have been pushing Big E from what I've heard. I don't deny it. I'm just saying I didn't even I didn't even know that Big E was still there, to be honest with you, because I haven't been watching. I've got a ticket to the Arthur Ashe Dynamite next week. Enjoy. Should be a blast. On Goldberg's DVD is his Bash of the Beach 98 match with Hennig, which was a poor choice of an opponent. Well, I mean, he basically just squashed him anyway, so it's like... I mean, Goldberg, the best Goldberg matches are the ones where he just mows over people, most of the time. Like, his legitimately, like, good matches are like the WrestleMania match with Lesnar, the Nitro match with Sting, the Nitro match with Raven, and even that one was just a freak show more than anything else. I guess you could say the match with Hogan, which not the most technically sound match in the world or anything, but legitimate. It wasn't a legitimate attempt at like putting a match together, rather than the typical Goldberg squash match. And he had that match with Scott Steiner at Fall Brawl 2000. That was excellent. And he had the I remember the ladder match with Scott Hall being good, the one with the stun gun on the ladder. I remember that being a good match, but I haven't seen it since it first aired, so I don't know. But you didn't watch Goldberg for great matches. You watched him to mow over motherfuckers. That's what you were there for. You were there to see the car wreck. Why would Big E there, racist? I don't understand that sentence. His world title match with Sting on Nitro. Yeah, that was one of his better matches. Only one left for a title is Xavier Woods. Yes, put the belt on Xavier Woods. Then it's complete. They should have a battle between Xavier Woods and Heath Slater, with the winner getting a world title shot to complete the championship run of the stable, the trios group that they were in. I'm going to talk about that Double X Prince. Kevin Owens and Zayn's contracts coming up. I am going to talk about that. How long was the Rock Goldberg match? I think it was longer than a typical Goldberg match, that's for sure. I think it was like 10 to 12 minutes, somewhere in that range. Goldberg had a fairly good match with Jericho at Bad Blood 2003. I don't remember that. I remember they feuded, and I remember they had the match, but I don't remember the match being any good. Oh yeah, his match with DDP. I forgot about that one. His match with DDP at Halloween Havoc. That was my favorite match he ever had. Why do you think Goldberg only had one run as WCW champion? Because WCW was run by idiots. That's why. Big E needs to turn heel man on the New Day. Sure, why not? Thoughts on Kenny Omega topping the PWI 500? Well, I have my issues with the PWI 500. Mainly being that's like the standards that they apply are just weird at best. Like, is it based on star ratings? Is it based on prevalence on TV, success of programs? Like, what is it based on? Because there were, I think, one year where Dean Malenko was the number one on the PWI 500. And I'm like, what the hell? Look, I love and respect Dean Malenko, but what exactly justified him being on the PWI 500 outside of the fact that he just has really great matches that get high star ratings? But then I don't know. It's just weird. Like, I agreed with it when it went to Okada that one year because Okada was like having the best programs, the best matches, was the best booked. Like, he was just the man that year. And I felt like if I was going to pick somebody, it would have been him. But as for Omega, I mean, I didn't watch WWE nearly enough to make more of an informed decision, to be perfectly honest. If it was a top MVP for AEW, I might go there with it. But for wrestling as a whole, I'm not so sure. But then again, in the COVID era, it's so hard to judge anything anyway because we're just trying to keep the business alive at this point. So the whole thing is just kind of messy anyway. Goldberg Hogan on Nitro was only good because of Goldberg winning the title. Well, that's why everybody remembers it, for sure. My favorite for pure comedy is his match with Regal. That is one of the most awkward fucking matches ever. Like, it was the Nia Jackson Charlotte Flair of its day. It's such an awkward match to look at. Lesnar Goldberg at WrestleMania 20 is a match I love for all the wrong reasons. Yeah. Yep. Who nowadays would be the equivalent of you being surprised when Malenko topped the list? Like, who would be that guy? Like, somebody like a Johnny Gargano, like somebody like that who's like, oh, I'm Mr. Takeover because I always have the best matches, like that type of guy. And I'm not putting him down. I'm just saying, you're not the biggest star. You didn't necessarily have the best programs. Although Johnny Gargano, his feud with Ciampa was great. I'm not going to deny that. But it's like, it would be like giving him the PWI 500 based on the fact that he has the best reviewed matches of the year. And it's like, but he's nowhere near the biggest star in wrestling. It's just not. And I feel like a certain level of star power has to go into that. But the PWI 500 doesn't even seem to have any kind of consistent standard. So it's like, I don't know. The whole thing's kind of a mess. Goldberg to me was a cross between Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Ultimate Warrior. He was definitely a kind of the 90s version of the Ultimate Warrior. Like that type of character that just destroys people easily. That was definitely him. The Austin comparison feels like more because they look similar. But really, like character-wise and style-wise, there weren't a whole lot of other similarities there. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I can talk about All Out finally. It's been over a week since the show took place. And I'll pretty much just mirror what everybody else has been saying. I thought the show was... I thought it was terrific. I thought it was an excellent show. It was one of those weird shows where I was thoroughly entertained all the way throughout the show. There wasn't much I didn't enjoy. And the big stuff that happened, the major headlines, were... amazing, and obviously rocked the wrestling world to its core and created a lot of interesting possibilities for AEW in the future, storyline-wise and match-wise, and big marquee matches that they can create. Is it going to sustain them long-term? Those are the things we're going to have to look out for. That's the thing, where it's like, you know, it's great that we have all these guys now, and it's exciting because they're in a new venue and a new company and a new brand, but... you can't rely on that forever, like constantly picking up the ex-WWE guys. And you've got to like make sure that they are doing things that are creatively interesting, because what put WCW on the map was not so much the fact that they got Hogan and Savage and those guys, although it certainly helped. What put them over the top was when the NWO came in and they started doing that angle. That was what really pushed them to the next level, was that creative idea. And that's what they need now that they have guys like CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, which the funny thing about him, I slip up from time to time and I still call him Daniel Bryan. When he first went to WWE and they started calling him Daniel Bryan, I kept slipping up and calling him Bryan Danielson. So now I have to retrain myself all over again. It's really fucking annoying. But, now that they have these guys, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Cole, baby, it's like, okay, that's exciting, and there's talks that like Kevin Owens might go over there and Sami Zayn might go over there. It's like, oh my god, all these possibilities. People are speculating that Charlotte might go over there because her husband's already over there, and she had that fiasco of a match with Nia Jax, which, you know, how does Nia Jax keep getting worse? That's the thing that floors me. She never gets better. She keeps getting worse. Like, she looks wildly out of shape. She looked horrible in that match, and that match was just a fiasco. But anyway, I wouldn't be surprised if Charlotte was frustrated, or at least felt like she'd done all she can in WWE and would want to try a new venue with new talents, like the Britt Bakers and the Thunder Rosas and you know, those type of talents, just to freshen her up a bit and give her something more entertaining to do, more exciting, because that was how wrestling used to function back in the 80s, where it's like, you know, you'd moved from territory to territory and you know, keep yourself fresh and exciting, and you weren't on TV every week. So it's I could see Charlotte being tempted just with that alone, and I'm sure that's probably an aspect for a lot of these guys who've been stuck in WWE for years and years, where it's like, I can go somewhere else, reestablish myself, reinvigorate myself, and hopefully do something interesting. But I'll say what I said when WWE started signing all the indie stars when NXT was really taking off. I was like, look, they can't sign. You can't possibly sign everybody. You can't. And I'm looking through this card right now, the All Out card. You had Matt Hardy. You have Miro, formerly Rusev. You got Jon Moxley, formerly Dean Ambrose in WWE. You've got Ruby Soho, formerly Ruby Riott, who made her debut at All Out. You've got Chris Jericho. You've got CM Punk. You've got Paul White. And you've got Christian Cage in the main event with Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson showing up. You can't rely... Now, I'm not the type of guy that's like, oh my god, they're bringing in all these WWE guys, yeah, and they can't make their own stars. No, they can make their own stars. They got Orange Cassidy over. They got Jungle Boy over. They got Hangman Page over. They got MJF over. They got Sammy Guevara over. They've got a good crop. Britt Baker is basically a main event star at this point. They don't always give her the main event spot, but the level of reaction that she gets is basically at a main event level, and she's one of the top stars in the company in my eyes. And it's so they are capable of creating their own stars, to say nothing for, you know, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, who have never been in the WWE in any kind of significant capacity and are major stars in the company. So it's not that they're unable to create new stars. It's just that you come to a limit where it's like you can only bring in so many talents before your roster gets too big and guys get lost in the shuffle, and there's griping and complaining and all the other stuff that happens when a bunch of egos get involved and people are fighting for TV time and things like that. So this is something that they're going to have to be mindful of, because at least when WWE was signing everybody to NXT, and even though it turned out they couldn't sign everybody, because even though it felt like WWE had almost all the top indie stars, AEW was still able to make stars out of MJF, Sammy Guevara, Hangman Page, the Bucks, obviously, and guys like that. So they were still able to find people. Britt Baker, I didn't know who she was until she went to AEW, and look at how she's turned out. So it's my basic warning here is that you can't sign everybody, and just because they were a former WWE guy or they go in the market, you should evaluate them like you would any other talent. And just because they came from WWE doesn't mean that they're a worthwhile investment necessarily. And AEW's they're almost at a point, honestly, where they could probably do a brand split and it would be okay. They could probably pull it off. They've got that many people on the roster. So, yeah, I thought All Out was a very, very exciting show, and I was thoroughly entertained all the way throughout. But this is not something that they can rely on forever, and they're going to have to put these people, these new guys that they got, in place creatively where they can contribute and be strong members of the product. And they also have to realize that they have to come to a point where they realize that they're they can't rely on that forever to create interest in the brand. There's other things that they need to there's a lot of things they need to do creatively to keep the show interesting to where they don't have to rely on getting a WWE main eventer to do it. So, but my friend and co-host on Weekday Warriors of Wrestling, Eric, said this, and I think he's right. Right now, the perception is where AEW is winning a perception war is that their place is starting to look like the cool place to be. It's not NXT. That's definitely true. And guys are willingly leaving WWE to go over to AEW, so there's kind of like this kind of rebellious kind of thing going on right now where it's like, hey, this is looking like this is the cool place to be and not the one that has been virtually unopposed on TV for the better part of 2 decades. So, we'll see how everything gets played out, but, AEW came out all guns blazing on this show, and I think for this one night, it definitely paid off. I'm sorry, I'm looking at... Bobby the Brain Heenan commentary on Hogan versus Goldberg is actually really good. It's fucking great. It's one of the best calls of... Everybody says the best call of Heenan's career was Royal Rumble 92, and I agree. But his call on Hogan Goldberg is not far behind. The Sting Vader match that's on the Best of Sting DVD is their bounty match. They should have put all their matches on there, honestly. You could have filled an entire DVD of just Sting and Vader. You would have had plenty of great matches to work with. I thought it was a good show, but I think a lot of the praise of best show since WrestleMania 17 is going way overboard. I mean, I'll be honest, WrestleMania 17 is not my favorite show of all time like it is for a lot of people. Like, I would put... I'll be honest, as a show, I would put some of the Wrestle Kingdoms above this one, for sure. Some of the takeovers above this one, for sure. By AEW standards, it might be their best show. I'm not sure. But, no, I think it's a definite A+. Is it the best show in 20 years? I don't know if I'd go that far. AEW is ex-WWE pretty much now. Yeah, I mean, that's... Yeah. There's a lot of ex-WWE guys there. I just rattled off all their names. It's and that's something that could be a problem in the future if they're not careful. It's probably because she knows her cousin Dwayne will guarantee her a spot no matter what. She's working like that's the case. That's for sure. Charlotte is a lifer. Doubt she would leave. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. I've always held the belief never say never. I would be shocked if she did, but it's also like there's that attitude of like never say never. If what's going on with Brian Cage goes all the way through, there may be one less spot. What's going on with Brian Cage? I haven't heard anything. Those guys aren't really stars in my opinion. What, the young guys? Yeah, but they're more... Here's the thing, with the young guys that AEW's focused on and created, they are bigger names now than they were before AEW, where I barely knew who any of them were. So it's like, they made them names. They might not be Stone Cold Steve Austin level draws, but they're bigger stars now than they were 2 years ago. Are you watching the WWE draft in October? Probably not. I love Adam Cole's AEW theme. I'm going to have to listen to it. I'm probably going to listen to it again right after I get off this live stream. The Sting Jarrett 2 out of 3 falls on Thunder in 2000 is also on the Best of Sting. I've never seen that match because I wasn't watching much WCW back then. I'm late. Have you talked about Norm Macdonald, Arlen Jenkins? No, I have not. God. I already talked about Norm with somebody earlier today, and it's really depressing to me because I'll be honest, Norm Macdonald, one of my favorite comedians of all time, because he was just this mischievous little imp that would just say whatever the fuck he wanted, and everything he said was hilarious, even if it was offensive. And what a great comedic personality he was. And when I heard he died today, I was really bummed about it. But then I started cracking jokes about it, like, hey, that's what Norm Macdonald would have... He died doing what he loved. Having cancer. Norm Macdonald, the biggest disappointment to him dying today is the fact that he didn't die on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. That's the type of shit that Norm Macdonald will say. So it's like, I was sad at first, and then I watched a bunch of old Norm Macdonald clips, and I started making a bunch of jokes myself, and it cheered me up. And it's like that was the impact that Norm Macdonald had on me, where it was like he could say all this shocking shit, but it was all in good fun. It was all to get a laugh, and you could just laugh and have fun with him. And he was such a fun personality. Absolutely, like I put him up there as one of my personal favorites, and I was so bummed to hear that he died. All Out was okay, but I wouldn't call it the best necessarily. I'll say this: it's the best pay-per-view I've seen this year. I'll give it that much. I feel like the Brain was the only guy who understood Goldberg's popularity in WCW. Maybe Kevin Sullivan, because I've heard Sullivan talk about it. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people didn't quite understand what Goldberg was all about. Bobby definitely did. Bobby got it. He called him "da man" for a reason. People should sign with Impact Wrestling, but when I say it, people get angry at me. Well, at this point, it's like, like going to Impact feels like small potatoes, but it's like, hey, it's work. Something about Brian Cage not being booked properly. Well, Brian Cage is a guy who I really like, personally, and I think should be a beast. But for whatever reason, he's another guy that, like AEW, he kind of slipped through the cracks. I don't know why. I love the guy. I think he's a physical specimen that could be an absolute monster right now. And that's what Rusev or Miro is doing right now is probably what Brian Cage should have been doing when he first got to AEW. Roman Reigns' theme is better than Adam Cole's. I don't know Roman's theme off the top of my head because, again, I don't watch the show that much. I know he changed it. He's not doing the Shield theme anymore, but... What are your favorite WWE documentaries? The Undertaker, The Last Ride, is a really good one. I mean, it was obviously derivative of The Last Dance, but it worked for what it was. I think that was a really good series. Also, the best of Sting is that Blade Runner's reunion where they faced Hogan and Brett on Nitro. I completely forgot about that match. Completely forgot about it. And I rewatched it recently because it was on the Nitros that I rewatched. I'm pretty sure I'm not a doctor. But I'm pretty sure if you die, the cancer dies at the same time. That's not a loss, that's a draw. Norm Macdonald. Somebody sent me that quote earlier today, and I'm like, it made me laugh. And I'm like, that's such a Norm thing to say. Does anyone else think Brian Cage is too short? I mean, he's not any shorter than like Samoa Joe or anything like that, right? I mean, by today's standards, he's practically a giant. Because, I mean, I look at Billy Gunn today, and it's like, god damn, he looks like he looks like Sid Vicious compared to the wrestlers of today. I hate Bryan Danielson's theme in AEW. Yeah, it sounded a little weird to me, too. Sean Locke died. I'm not aware of who Sean Locke is, to be honest with you. Seriously, how is Impact not dead? Apparently, it was the international TV deals that they established when they were at their peak. Apparently, that helped keep them alive. The funny thing about that, B Slim, I don't know what the hell is going on in Ring of Honor right now. I have not watched any Ring of Honor. The Paul Heyman doc is great. I don't think I've seen it. What are your thoughts on when Jesse Ventura was in WCW? I thought he was a really good announcer. It was Jesse working with Tony most of the time, and I thought they did really well. Samoa Joe was injured again. Is that why they had to crown a new NXT champion? Billy Gunn is a legit 6'7", and he is huge. Let me tell you, when I went to AwesomeCon a few years ago, they had some wrestling guests there. They had Sting, Sergeant Slaughter, and Billy Gunn. And I only had enough time for two of them, so obviously I went for Sting and Sergeant Slaughter. But I could see Billy Gunn in my peripheral vision. I looked at him and was like, that man is fucking huge. It looks like a fucking giant. And he was a guy that in the Attitude Era, you looked at him and he looked like another guy. Like, he looked like average, but you look at him now and he looks like a fucking giant. When I saw him in person, I was like, holy shit, he is huge. I just think of that scene from Austin Powers 2. Why won't you die? That was Miss Robin Swallows, right? Which is it? Spits or Swallows? TNA had a TV deal in Australia on a Saturday night, and it was an awesome deal. Must have been. Samoa Joe has been perpetually injured for the last 12 years. Yeah, he's like the inverse of Mark Henry. Where Mark Henry would, like, get hurt all the fucking time, but it came later in his... It came, like... No, maybe it's exactly like Mark Henry now that I think about it. Yeah. Yeah, because I remember Mark Henry getting hurt a lot. Jesse Ventura's commentary on WWE DVDs is edited out. That's bullshit. I mean, how do you do, like, Hogan and Savage at WrestleMania 5? Because, like, half of the appeal of that match is the commentary. Jesse's commentary in particular. What would you name the top 5 WWE pay-per-views if you had to rename them? I wouldn't even know where to start. I think they're branded perfectly. They're like staples at this point. You know what those things are. There's nothing I could rename it that would be any better. Yeah, okay. So, now that I've done this, let's actually go through the all-out card so I can talk about everything. First, we had the pre-show match. The Best Friends and Jurassic Express, Orange Cassidy, Chuck Taylor, and Wheeler Yuta, along with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, with Marco Stunt in their corner, defeating the Hardy Family Office, Matt Hardy, Isaiah Cassidy, and Mark Quinn of Private Party. Man, they really didn't go anywhere. And Helico and Jack Evans of the Hybrid 2, with the Blade in their corner. So obviously this match was just a fun showcase of Orange Cassidy and Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. To a degree, it was just meant to show them off and their bits and everything that they do. So to that end, it was a good pre-show match. It just kind of warming up the crowd and giving them something to get excited about before the card properly got underway. My big mark-out moment is that the Butcher came back. So we finally got the Butcher and the Blade back. I was like, all right, because they were my favorite tag team there for a hot minute, and I wanted them to do more. I wanted AEW to do more with them, and now that the Butcher is back, it's like, all right, let's see if we can do something here. And the funny thing is, the Hardy Family Office, it's all tag teams. It's Matt Hardy, and then it's like Private Party, the Hybrid 2, and now the Butcher and the Blade. So it's like, man, that's a lot of tag teams in one stable. Speaking of Final Countdown, can you believe that was voted the second worst song of the 80s by Rolling Stones readers? Well, they're stupid. This song's awesome. I bought the Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior DVD. That's one of the worst ones WWE ever did. And I was not a Warrior fan, but it was such a one-sided hatchet job that's, honest to God, one of the worst things they ever did. Can a guy with the name Luchasaurus become world champion? Dude, I live in a world where Jack Swagger was world champion. At this point, anybody can be world champion. Taken seriously enough? Probably not. Okay, so now going into the main card, we opened up with Miro versus Eddie Kingston for the TNT Championship. This might be the most I've ever enjoyed Eddie Kingston in a match. I thought it was a nice, solid knockdown, drag-out fight with Eddie trying to use his strategy of using suplexes and DDTs to take Miro out. Basic old-school wrestling, roughneck style of match. And I'm like, I enjoyed this. It was fun. It's a nice, fun match. Miro got the win, of course, but yeah, it was a nice, fun, brutal, brawling type of match. I'm like, because Eddie's whole thing was always the promos. That was always his strongest point. Matches were never really his forte. So to see him go out there and have a match as good as this one, I was like, oh, Eddie Kingston can put together a good match after all. Good for him. So that's probably my favorite Eddie Kingston match of all time. And it was a nice, solid win for Miro and a good showcase for the TNT Championship, where the TNT Championship is, I know it started off as kind of a TV title thing, but it's slowly morphing into like the Tough Man title, or like what the Never Openweight title was, which is the description I used when I did my preview. Next up, we had one of the weaker matches on the card, I felt, Jon Moxley versus Satoshi Kojima. My problem with this match is that it was way too similar to the first match. It was just a brawling, kind of knockdown, drag-out fight once again. So I just felt like I was watching the same thing that I saw in the first match, but it was less interesting because they had less story going into it, outside of Moxley just wanting to beat all the Japanese legends for some reason. But the match itself was okay for what it was. Moxley got the win, and then we got another big pop moment where Minoru Suzuki, my favorite lunatic in Japanese wrestling, came out and challenged Jon Moxley, and the two had a match later on Dynamite. And for a one-off, I thought it was a great way to use Suzuki, and I thought the match itself that they had on Wednesday was very cool and a lot better than the match he had with Satoshi Kojima. Nice, stiff, hard-hitting match in front of a crowd that loved Moxley because it was his hometown crowd. So it was a great atmosphere, great energy, and a nice brawl, and a nice showcase for the best of Minoru Suzuki's ability. So if this was a one-off for Suzuki, I think it was a great way to use him. I thought it came off really, really well. Okay, I'm just keeping up with the comments here. Then we had Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, successfully defending the AEW Women's Championship against the alien Chris Statlander with Orange Cassidy in her corner. I said in my preview I was not overly excited for this match, mainly because, like, there's no reason for Britt Baker to lose the belt at this point, and so the situation itself had no real drama for me. It's like, no, Britt's going to win. You know she's going to win. She has to win. There's no way that Chris Statlander is winning this match. She didn't, but I think within those parameters, the match itself over-delivered. I thought it was a very good match, and Britt... By the way, Britt was being very, like, sneaky throughout the week, because on Dynamite the week before, she did that bit with, I have breaking news on a new signee to AEW, and then it turns out she was talking about her contract extension. And then during this match, she uses the Panama Sunrise as what should have been the finish. It wasn't the finish. It's another one of those situations where, like, just use the big move as the finish. What are you doing? Why is a flip pile driver being demoralized and undervalued and being treated like the way that super kicks were treated like 5 years ago? I don't understand it, but it's like every match has to have 97 flip pile drivers now, and it's just really fucking weird. But other than that, I really enjoyed the match, and Britt doing her little teases for Adam Cole all night was really kind of funny to me. And overall, like I said, it was just a really solid match, and Britt won, so they accomplished exactly what they needed to accomplish with this. Then we got the match that most people are calling the match of the night, and I'm pretty close and high up there myself. The Lucha Brothers, Penta, El Cerro Miedo, and Rey Fenix defeating the AEW Tag Team Champions, the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, to become the new champions themselves. And of course, it was a steel cage match. And I really enjoyed the hell out of this. And I was expecting this to be a complete and utter spot-fest car wreck, and much to my surprise, it was not. And I think what carried this match along as well as it did was just the Young Bucks being the absolute biggest prick heel team ever, and using all their cheap tactics, using the super kick with the shoe with the thumbtacks in it. Sorry, I'm getting texts. What's going on here? Sorry. I'm actually getting more Norm Macdonald quotes sent to me. But anyway, yeah, I thought that this match was great. I thought it came off really, really well. It was a nice little bloodbath, something that you normally don't see out of the Young Bucks. It told more of a story than most Young Bucks matches tell, as normally they go for straight-up spot fest. This was not that. They kept the high spots to a minimum and allowed the story to breathe, grow, develop, and set up the Young Bucks as massive heels, like moments where Penta was like shielding his brother from damage that they would do to him. and setting themselves up as setting up the Lucha Brothers as the sympathetic ones. Just great wrestling brutality all the way throughout, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it came off really, really well. And the title change was a surprise. I thought the Bucks were going to hold on to the belts for a little while longer, but no, it was the Lucha Brothers night. Penta and Rey Fenix won the belts, and nice capstone to an excellent steel cage match, in my eyes. When does Chris Statlander turn heel and become a xenomorph? I don't know. That'd be an interesting way to do it. She starts like bleeding acid in the ring. I thought this tag match was the best match in the show. A lot of people did, but I have another one that I really, really enjoyed, which I'll get into that in a little bit. But next up was more of a filler match. It was the 21-woman casino battle royale for a women's title shot. Let's see, who are the entrants? Hikaru Shida, Sky Blue, who I didn't know who she was, but she got a pretty big pop with the Chicago crowd, so they seem to know who she was. Emi Sakura, the Bunny, Abaddon, who is probably the most underutilized woman in wrestling now. Great character, great gimmick, should be doing more. The returning Anna Jay, Kiera Hogan from Impact Wrestling, Kylan King, Diamante, Nyla Rose, Thunder Rosa, Penelope Ford, Riho, Jamie Hayter, Big Swole, Ty Conti, Red Velvet, Layla Hirsch, Jade Cargill, Rebel, and the debuting Ruby Soho, who ultimately won the Battle Royal. Looking at this list, everybody said that the women's division was the weakest part of AEW in their early days. They've gotten a lot better. I think having Britt as the champion definitely helps. But when you look at that talent roster, it's like, they've got some pretty talented women there, so it's not completely dire. And I want to see a lot more out of Thunder Rosa. I want to see a lot more out of Ty Conti, because I think both of them are really, really good. And I'm glad to see Anna Jay back, because she's one that I thought had potential. And I think she could be a big asset to them if she grows and develops a little bit more. And so I think there's a lot of potential for that division to get good. The Battle Royal itself, it was a typical Battle Royal of its kind. It was there just to fill time and get people to pop for Ruby Soho, which I'm going to be honest, never was the biggest fan of Ruby Riott. I didn't get it. I don't get it. I don't think she's a bad worker or anything. I just, it's not like I hate her work or anything. I just, as a character and the look and everything, I just don't see the appeal in it. I just don't understand it. She's not for me. But a lot of people seem to like her, and she gets to debut and win a title shot in her first night, which is probably going to rub some of the AEW's just using ex-WWE people and pushing them. Probably gives them more ammunition. I would have liked to have seen it gone to Thunder Rosa, because I want to see Britt and Thunder Rosa Part 2 with the title on the line. They had that excellent match, the unsanctioned match earlier this year, that really solidified. After that match, it was like, okay, motherfuckers, put the belt on Britt, you fucking assholes. It's long overdue as it is. And I think after that match, it was like it couldn't be denied anymore. And I would love to see a rematch of those two, and I was kind of hoping for it. But they gave it to Ruby Soho. Okay, that's fine. But I would still like to see Britt and Thunder Rosa 2 Electric Boogaloo. I would definitely be interested in checking that out. So, let me see. Young Bucks are hit or miss, and most of the time it's a miss. It's not that they're hit or miss for me. It's just that you're going to get one of two types of Young Bucks matches. You're either going to get a spot-festy car wreck, or you're going to get an actual legitimate attempt at telling a story. They are perfectly capable of doing both. I prefer the storytelling aspect. The old school tag team approach. When they start bouncing all over the place like pinballs, I kind of lose interest. And but a lot of people like it, so it's just kind of like they're just playing to their fans. But at least they vary it up. I'll give them that. They don't just do the pinball stuff, so I'll give them that at least. With guys like Orange, Jungle Boy, Darby, Phoenix, Pac, Andrade, Seidel, Guevara, Starks, and Cole, would a AEW light heavyweight title / X title work? I'd be worried about adding another title, especially after they put the TNT title out there. I don't know. I mean, they could probably do a pretty solid light heavyweight division that they could give to guys like the Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy would be my choice to be the first one, but yeah, so it probably could work, but I would also be leery about adding another belt at this point. sure, absolutely. No, absolutely. Like Pac and those guys. If you treat a cruiserweight division like it's main event worthy, then it's going to feel main event worthy. Like if you look at boxing and MMA, the light heavyweights tend to be the bigger draws anyway, and it's the WWE, they killed their cruiserweight division by making them just a filler tag match on Raw every week. It's like nobody cares. Nobody moves up, nobody moves down, nothing matters, nothing's on the line, and it's just boring tag matches where they do spots and they make the ropes purple. And that's not a division. That's just a filler. That's just filler shit. I never understood the appeal of Ruby Soho. I'm glad somebody else agrees with me. I never got it either. There are fans that don't care for Bret Hart's serious-sounding mic skills. Yeah, there are, but I personally... Mike skills was not Bret's strongest suit, but I don't think he was bad on the mic. Everything he said was believable. Like, so it's not like I sat there like he looks uncomfortable and he doesn't believe what he's saying. No, I quite the contrary. I believed most of what Bret said. He just wasn't flashy like Hogan or Savage or Flair or something like that. Kind of like Sting. Like, Sting has gotten a rap for like not being the best on the mic, but it's like, dude, Sting, I believed everything that he said. He just wasn't super flashy. Do AEW keep renaming the TNT title every time they sign with a new network? Oh, they're going to rename it the TBS title? Maybe. I don't know. All right, next up, they might just call it the TV title when they move to TBS. But anyway, next up was my favorite match on the show. MJF versus Chris Jericho with Chris Jericho's career on the line. And I love this from the word go when MJF made his entrance with the Chris Jericho Y2J style countdown. And just full on heel, dick, asshole all the way through. And it was like, that really set the tone right there. The only thing I didn't like was the guitarist for Fozzy playing Judas to the ring. And it was just sounded really awkward and didn't get over, I think, the way they were hoping it would. But other than that, I thought this match was very much like an old school Memphis type of match where it's all the theatrics, the heel being the biggest asshole in the world, and the face fighting from underneath to ultimately come back and win it. And they used a lot of tricks. They used a lot of classic old school wrestling tried and true methods. They did the thing where both guys were setting up their submission finishers throughout the entire match. And it was a matter of who was going to escape whose finisher and who was going to lock in whose finisher first. And I thought all of that stuff came off really, really well. I thought the false finish came off beautifully, and the crowd reacted to it beautifully, and it also gave MJF kind of an out when he got defeated. So I don't think this hurt MJF at all, and actually he came out on Dynamite the next week and cut one of the best scathing heel promos ever, where he was just in full-on, I'm going to be an offensive prick, and because I'm mad that I lost, and that stuff feels legitimate and is great. It just radiates off the TV whenever I see it. So, yeah, I really, really enjoyed this match. It kind of gave me everything I wanted out of that good heel versus face dynamic, that old school good wrestling stuff that made me fall in love with it in the first place. Flair wasn't just flashy, he was goddamn insane. Well, yeah, of course. On the Greatest Stars of the 90s DVD is Bret Sting from Halloween Havoc 98. Yeah, that's a match that should be better than it was, unfortunately. Like, Sting and Bret, you would think they would have really good chemistry, but their matches were just fine. They never had, great matches. Really? Jericho versus MJF? Really? Yeah, really. Really, really. Where's the Shrek? Really, really. My favorite Bret Hart promo is Who are you to doubt El Dandy? That was a pretty funny promo. Can't take MJF or Jericho seriously anymore. I like him. Jericho is too fat to do the Lion Tamer. Does being fat prevent you from doing the Lion Tamer? I'm not sure. I'm not sure on the physics of the Lion Tamer. But yeah, I liked the match. It was my favorite match. Next up, we got the most anticipated part of the show and the main draw of the show. But also the thing, when it was all said and done, was probably just the most straightforward thing on the entire card, and that was CM Punk versus Darby Allin. I thought as far as reintroducing CM Punk to the wrestling audience and showing that he could still go and still looks physical, he looks like he's in really good shape. I thought the match achieved that beautifully, and I think Darby, speaking to how good he is, Darby, got people to cheer for him against CM Punk in a crowd in a venue in Chicago. So it says a lot for how far Darby's come along that he would even get anybody cheering for him in this match. And I thought the match itself was pretty straightforward. They did do that one cool spot where Punk sat up from the before getting hit with the coffin drop. But other than that, it was just a pretty straightforward, basic match with the appeal of like, oh my God, Punk can still do it. And I thought it came off pretty well. He didn't look like he had too much ring rust, but I think there's plenty of room to grow. Now, my concern with CM Punk right now is more on the character department, where he came out on Dynamite the next week and was being nice and put everybody over and all this other stuff. And he sounded a lot like John Cena to me when he came out, where it's like, I'm just here to have a good time, yo. And it's like, look, I'm all for Punk being happy and that he's not a miserable basket case like he was in WWE, and he's improved his... It's like Shawn Michaels when he found God. It's like, look, hey, man, whatever you got to do to improve your life and not wind up dead before you turn 45. Hey, you do you, and that's great. But can your character be interesting on TV? Because, Born Again Shawn, not as interesting as pilled up jackass Shawn Michaels from the late 90s. Way better wrestling character in the late 90s. And Punk, it's the same thing. He's like, look, I get that you're happy, I get that you're excited, and that's all great. But can we get the angry Punk back? Because it's like, right now it's fine because we're still in that honeymoon period and we're happy to have him. But there's a part of me that's like, can we get... when's the asshole Punk going to come out? Because that's the Punk that I fell in love with and a lot of other people fell in love with. And what made him a star, it was that. It was that rebel against the machine type of personality that made Punk what he became. So hopefully we get some of that down the road. But right now he's just like, I'm just happy to be here, guys, and people are popping for him because, oh my God, it's CM Punk. But there's going to come a point where that wears off, and I hope creatively they have some good ideas to follow up. Let's see. All right, take care, Outlaw. Good luck at the doctor's appointment. Love that segment where Brett reunites Owen and the Bulldog. I do too. That was great stuff. Bret Hart had no place in the WWE after '97. I don't think he could have adapted to how WWF was changing. Probably not, might be one of the reasons why he left. He knew he wasn't going to be able to cut it for too long in that type of environment. Creative environment, I should say. That Punk match was pretty well received. It was a pretty good match. It wasn't like my favorite match of all time or anything, but it was a pretty good match. And I think people got what they wanted out of it, which was just to see if Punk could still go, which they got that. I just wish they would have built to Punk hitting the GTS for the first time and have that be the finish, but they spoiled it with that out-of-ring spot. Maybe. HBK without pills is like a Mania without pyro. Punk sounding like Cena, the world is really coming to an end, isn't it? You fell in love with Punk, gay. Are you allowed to make those jokes anymore? Am I going to get my channel pulled just for reading that comment out loud? I don't know. What are your thoughts on the other Bret Shawn Survivor Series match from 1992? I have not seen that match since it happened in 1992, so I couldn't tell you if it's any good or not. I mean, I enjoyed it when I was a kid, but I was also a kid, so take that for what it's worth. But I'm sure it's at least a pretty good match. It's not as memorable as the 97 one for obvious reasons, but I'm sure it had its moments. Um, Okay, so we got through Punk and Darby. Next, we got the match that nobody cared about: Paul White defeating QT Marshall. It was a piss break match, but unfortunately, I didn't need to piss. So it was kind of like, I'm glad that they have matches like this where it's just quick and easy and let you go to the bathroom real quick. I used to enjoy older pay-per-views that would have matches like this because, like, look, my bladder can only sit. I can only sit still for so long. I need to have something I don't care about, so I have an excuse to go to the bathroom. But I didn't need to go to the bathroom at this point, so I sat there and watched this, and it was quick to the point. Gave Paul White a win on pay-per-view, and that was it. It was like, that's all it was. No harm, no foul. It was quick and over with. It was over with in the amount of time that it needed to be over with. So fine. It was a whatever match. To be frank, you still act like a kid. Tell that to my girlfriend. She probably agreed with you. Punk said he still had scores to settle in the back. I immediately went to call. That's interesting. Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. PM News was underrated. Oh, you're just trolling me. You're just trolling me, man. Anyway, next we got the main event. Kenny Omega successfully defending the AEW World title against Christian Cage. And, yeah, it was a match that turned out way better than I expected. Mainly because I said in my preview, it's like, they can't close with that because no one's going to care. Because nobody thinks that Christian's going to beat Kenny. Like, nobody does. But it had leaked earlier that day that Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson were going to may potentially be showing up. So I think that kept people's interest in the match because, this is obviously a smart crowd. And they kind of knew what was coming. So they paid attention just to see the big moments. And with that added attention, I think Omega and Christian over-delivered in a situation that didn't have a whole lot of drama in it. Like, again, we all knew Kenny was going to win, and he did. But I thought the match itself was a really well put together main event, and thank God they let the top rope move actually be the finish for once. Great finish with the one-winged angel off the top. Kenny won mostly clean. And then we got the huge debuts of both Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson, which was a huge 1-2 punch double whammy to close out on, and probably one of the biggest moments, if not the biggest thing that AEW's created so far. Now we've got Adam Cole joined up with his buddies in the Elite, and we've got Bryan Danielson, who's right now on the face side of things acting on his own. Obviously, it's going to be Kenny versus Bryan at some point, and I think Bryan's at a point in his career where he wants to do the checklist. He wants to face everybody that he's wanted to face, and I think Kenny's on that list. So that'll be a very interesting match when it happens, and I will definitely be there for it. Be there meaning I will order the pay-per-view. So, yeah, thoroughly entertaining show all the way around. I think it offered a bunch of different things. I think it was mostly well put together, and it ended with a huge moment that got a lot of people talking. So I think All Out was a heck of a show. I give it an A. It's a must-watch show. I think probably the best pay-per-view I've seen this year, at least. I don't know. Again, I'm not going to go as far to say it's the best pay-per-view in 20 years, but it was a very good pay-per-view. And highly enjoyable for me. One of AEW's better pay-per-view efforts, for sure. But then again, like I said earlier, we've got all that other stuff to consider. What's going to happen with Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson and CM Punk and all these guys coming into AEW? What's going to happen when guys like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn go onto the market? What's going to happen when, some women go up on the market? Like, where's Sasha Banks been? Because apparently she got in some trouble for some anti-vaccine rhetoric, and I don't know, she might be out of there, and if Sasha Banks out of there, does AEW want to take the risk on her? I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens for the remainder of 2021 in regards to All Elite Wrestling. Christian Cage lives up to his shirt. Outwork everyone. No, Christian Cage has always been a great worker. I'm not saying that. I just think as a character, Christian doing the same thing he's been doing for the last, I don't know, decade and a half is just like, it's just not interesting at this point. It's just kind of like, you can have him there, but he shouldn't be a regular main eventer. Pretty soon, Punk and Bryan will have faced each other in 3 different promotions. We'll see. Here's my come at me bro moment. I actually like Bryan's theme a lot. But then again, I'm a rap fan, so there's some bias. Well, maybe I'll give it a listen after the live stream. So, that's all out. I think I've talked enough wrestling. Is there anything else big going on in wrestling? Like, what else have I missed? Because I literally didn't know until I started live streaming that Big E was the WWE champion. So, kind of disappointed. I was digging Lashley. I was actually like, Lashley and Roman Reigns were the only things whenever I would see WWE clips. It's like, well, this is pretty cool. Now it's like, oh, they gave it to Big E, but I was kind of digging Lashley. Mark's on Reddit hater guts now. Yeah, Sasha was one of the ones that was like, you know, the fans online would kiss up to her the most, but that's not so much happening now. But anyway, so it's time to do some movie reviews. These are the ones I wanted to do last week. Or the last time I did a live stream when I did my preview of All Out. These are all the movies that I have watched during the summer. And it's quite a bit. And I'm going to give my recommendations and my thoughts on these movies. We'll see how long it takes us. It's already almost midnight, so we might be here until 1 in the morning. We'll see. Big E is champion, Lesnar is back, and so is the Demon. See, I didn't know Finn Balor was back. That's a new one. The most what the fuck botch between Nikki and Tamina last night. I'm going to look this up. I have not seen this. Let us see. Nikki, Tamina, botch. Assume this is Nikki Cross, right? Major botch on Monday Night Raw. All right, let's see it.
ASH feeling the effects of the brutality that is Tamina. Not her tag team partner, Rhea Ripley.
Oh, tornado DDT, shoulders down. Is that enough? Oh, yes.
Oh, they botched the 3 count. They botched the finish, and then they botched the 3 count.
Here is your winner.
Oh, dear.
Tamina. A surprise look.
Oh, they botched the announcement, too.
The entire WWE universe.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, music got
Wait, what? What the fuck?
Coming, Tamina was so dominant. Everyone would.
Oh my god, that's hilarious! It's oh my god, that really fell apart. Maybe I might get a copyright for that. I don't know. Isn't the law like? I don't know. I'll probably get a copyright for it, but, you know. I'm not monetized, so it's not like... Well, my videos haven't been monetized for almost a year, so it's like, what are you going to do to me? Okay, so let's get into the movies. Movies that I've watched throughout the summer. Well, before I start reviewing the movies that I've seen, are there any movies that you all have seen that you recommend or that you really enjoyed this summer? It was so bad they had to super edit the YouTube upload. Oh my god. That's like 14 botches. Like all in one. It's not just one botch. It's just the wrestlers fucked up. The referee kind of fucked up. The announcer fucked up. The production people fucked. It's just this zen moment where all the stars aligned and everybody fucked up. It was amazing. Have you seen the Fear Street trilogy on Netflix? I have not, but I saw a trailer and I was interested in checking them out. Backdoor to China was pretty good. Come on, man. Don't. No. Don't be doing that. I watched Rampage on Sci-Fi this summer. Yeah, Rampage strikes me as a sci-fi movie. Sci-Fi Channel movie. 9 Days. I don't think I've heard of 9 Days. Just watch Kate on Netflix. I have not seen that. No, I'm not even sure what it is. Nope. They had to try and edit it to make it look like a no contest. See, that's one of those things where it's like, the fuck up is so bad you can't make up for it. So what I would do is make a storyline out of it where there's a controversy over who won the match and keep the feud going. That's what I would do. Just run with it. Don't, like, try to memory hole it and convince us that it didn't happen. Just run with the boo-boo. On my Calgary trip this summer, I watched Seven, the Shawshank Redemption, and The Babadook. All great movies. Okay, 9 Days. Souls are competing for the opportunity to become human. Interesting. All right, well, I'm going to start on my movies real quick. I'm going to fill up my water bottle. I will be right back. Give me, like, 3 minutes. All right. Okay, I'm back. Hello, everyone. Hello. I'm back. Sorry, I just need water. Alright. Kate is a 24 Hours to Live action revenge gung fu flick. And it's on Netflix? I might check it out. So pull a Rock Big Show from Royal Rumble 2000. Basically, yeah, why not? Yeah, it takes 3 minutes to fill this up. You'd be surprised. Patty, get the Glock. There's a man in the closet. Ooh. The Card Counter, the newest film by Paul Schrader, screenwriter for Scorsese classics like Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. Ooh, I like both of those movies. What's that thing on the dresser behind you? I mean, what thing are you pointing to? Because there's a lot of shit on this shelf. Does FT Legend hate you? No, he's just busting my balls. Seven is a fucked up movie. Yes, it is. Great movie, but it's a fucked up movie. Elijah, what thing on the shelf are you referring to? Oh, I'm coughing. I got COVID. I'm going to die. Anything? No? Okay. Well, I'll start reviewing the movies that I saw this summer. All new movies. There were a bunch of old movies. I actually did. Funny you mentioned Seven. I actually did watch Seven. Rewatched it about a month and a half ago. It's a terrific movie, and I highly recommend it if you can stomach it. Oh, the Death Star! Yes! Yes, that is my Lego Death Star. That's what that is. Underneath it, yeah, that's the Lego Death Star. That's what that is. I think I've shown this thing off before. It's about, I've had it for, God, 7 years or something. It's a pretty nice setup. I like it. Please don't break. Watch it just crumble, or I knock it off that shelf, or the The filing cabinet. Gunpowder Milkshake on Netflix, possibly the worst action I've seen in a long while. Wow. I watched The Terminator this year on TV, but they edited out some of the scenes due to time restrictions. Okay. Okay, so getting into the movies, the new movies that I watched this summer, starting with one that I watched on HBO Max, and from what I understand, it's the most watched movie on HBO Max, at least of new releases. From what I understand, it's this movie and then Godzilla vs. Kong. Which, by the way, I'm not going to be reviewing Godzilla vs. Kong again because I've already reviewed it. No reason to really talk about it, so we're going to let that one alone. But that movie would be Mortal Kombat, based on the very popular video game franchise from my childhood. I remember when Mortal Kombat first became popular and the big controversy surrounding such a violent video game. And it's funny because you go back and play the original Mortal Kombat. Yeah, it's violent, but it looks so cartoony, and the games have gotten so much worse since then that it's like the original Mortal Kombat is basically nothing now. But it was still an iconic game, an iconic series, especially those original three. And it's something that hit pop culture in a huge way. And there was the Mortal Kombat movies of the 90s, neither of which are good. I know a lot of people love the first one. I'm sorry, it's not a good movie. It's where I'll give that movie credit, because I think the story's really bad, and I think a lot of the acting is not too great, with some exceptions like Raiden, Liu Kang, and Shang Tsung, I think are pretty... Well, Johnny Cage was pretty good too, and I guess Bridget Wilson as Sonya Blade, she was okay, but maybe the acting was better than I was thinking. But anyway, the 95 Mortal Kombat film, it was dumb story-wise. The story was dumb, and a lot of the jokes were bad anytime they tried to be funny in that movie. But what it did do, it recaptured like the energy that surrounded the release of the original game. Unfortunately, it couldn't be as violent because it was PG-13, which I thought was another aspect that was really, really lacking in the original Mortal Kombat film. So what it lacked in a lot of like technical areas that you would think of for a good movie, I think it made up for it. I think it's one of the reasons people are nostalgic for the movie, is that it did appropriately recapture the energy of the Mortal Kombat video game and the experience of playing it and seeing it for the first time. I felt like it kind of got that down, even without the violence. And then there's the second one, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which is just an unwatchable. If you don't like bad movies, that movie is unwatchable. If you love bad movies, you should absolutely watch it because it's hilarious. But this new one that came out, it does a lot of things better than the 95 film. Mainly the gore. Mainly the cast of characters are generally really good. I thought Kano in this was really good. And the roster that they put on display is great. They get a ton of different characters into this thing. Sometimes to the degree of being hilarious, where just somebody will just show up. It's like, oh, hey, it's that guy. There was a lot of that going on in this movie, where it's like maybe they crammed a few too many characters into it. But some of them worked really well, like Kano, who probably carried the movie on his back. And the action was generally okay, and was more reflective of the old video game by being violent. But they also ran into some problems on the creative side of things, like making the protagonist a completely new character named Cole. And I was like, was there something wrong with Liu Kang? Why can't Liu Kang be the focus like he was in the original movie? I don't know. Like, I don't see the point in creating a whole new character when you have an entire roster of characters that you can choose from. Some of the Scorpion Sub-Zero backstory, I guess, was kind of cool, and like the ending fight was kind of cool, even if Sub-Zero was like overpowered as fuck throughout the entire movie. Like, I don't remember Sub-Zero being, like, that much more powerful than every other fighter in Mortal Kombat, but be that as it may. And one of the big issues for me was they spent most of the movie training the characters for the tournament, like Sonya, like Jax, like Cole, this new guy. They train them for the tournament. Raiden prepares them for the tournament. By the way, Raiden in this is nowhere near as good as he was in the 95 film. That's one of those cases where the 95 film did it better. And Johnny Cage isn't in it, which feels like a huge omission. But they spend the entire movie training them for this tournament, and then the tournament never happens. So I guess it was just the main plot of the movie is basically just one big sequel bait. So then they just do a bunch of fights that have nothing to do with the tournament, and it's just kind of felt like, I don't know, like a lot of build-up without a lot of payoff, and a lot of sequel baiting, of which I'm pretty sure this is going to get a sequel. So we'll see how that turns out. But in any case, I thought the movie was okay and was not like a smear on the legacy of Mortal Kombat or anything like that. But I think if you took the elements that were the best about the 95 film and you take it with the elements that were the best about this film, mainly the violence and the roster choices, you'd have like the perfect Mortal Kombat movie. But like, I think the original film had the energy without a lot of the execution and technique. And this one lacked the energy, if that makes any sense. I don't even know if I'm explaining that well. But this new one lacked a lot of the energy, but had, like, those key elements that the original film was missing. So it's like, man, if you just mushed them together, you'd have, like, the perfect Mortal Kombat film. I wish they'd stop making Resident Evil... I wish they'd stop making video game movies. The Resident Evil reboot looks like a fan film. Oh, dear God. Mortal Kombat of today makes the original games look like peanuts. I agree. Too bad you will die. My favorite line ever. I want to see what color your lipstick, lipstick your blow-up doll is wearing. Your pinky touched that small exhaust port. Explode. Stop making Cole feel left out. No, he'll always be left out. The filmmakers probably made it PG-13 because the Mortal Kombat demographic was mostly younger kids and teens. Oh, no, that's exactly why they did it. I'm just saying it's like because they did it, it didn't feel like the full Mortal Kombat experience. Actual studio note, we didn't want a white male hero in the martial arts movie, so we left Johnny Cage out. But then why did they set him up for the sequel? They did the Marvel post-credit thing where they set him up for the sequel. What the fuck? Also, that still doesn't explain why Cole, they invented a brand new character when they could have just used Liu Kang. So even by their own stupid logic, they're being stupid. Favorite Kano joke? Oh, probably when he did his fatality. I mean, I guess it's not much of a joke, but it was like the coolest moment in the entire movie. Okay, anyway, moving on to the next movie. Nobody, an action movie starring Bob Odenkirk, of all people, who I think most of us associate with comedy, especially his roles in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And I would like to take this time to wish Bob Odenkirk my best. I know he had a health scare a few weeks ago. It sounds like he's going to be okay. I don't know. It was a heart-related thing, and, you know, when it's something with the heart, you don't mess with that. But and it happened while they were filming what I think is going to be the last season of Better Call Saul. But I just want to wish him all the best, and hopefully he comes out of it okay. But this is a movie, him in an action movie, again, of all things, where it's like, I don't see that working. And then I watched the movie, and the whole idea of, like, this guy who's just a regular dad, living a regular life, and then some burglars break into his house, and it kind of, like, triggers something inside of him where he goes back to his old life, and as like this military operative, like that was a top level assassin and killer, and he ends up crossing paths with the Russian mafia as a result of like one small thing, caused a huge thing to kind of snowball, and he becomes like this murdering badass once again, kind of shedding, and it's all done mostly to protect his family, but also make himself feel better because, he feels restrained as like a normal family man, and now he can kind of cut loose and be the man that he always was prior to his family life. And overall, I think it's a pretty entertaining movie. I think it's a fun action movie. I think the cast is mostly really good. You get Christopher Lloyd as Bob Odenkirk's dad, which is really fun to see. I'm never going to object to seeing Christopher Lloyd in anything. And movie was a lot of fun. It was just a really fun, badass little action movie. Kind of cut from the same cloth as something like a John Wick. Although not as stylized as John Wick. This was more like down and dirty and a little grimier. And it made for a lot of fun. I don't think it reinvented the wheel as far as action movies go. But as a solid action movie that I got to check out, starring a guy who I never expected to see in something like this, I thought it came off really well and it was thoroughly enjoyable. So, thumbs up for me. From the trailer alone, Nobody looked awesome. I don't think I ever saw a trailer for it. Speaking of Odenkirk, Triple H had a cardiac event. Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, that was weird too. Yeah, Johnny Cage has a daughter now who's like a character in Mortal Kombat. It's like, you could have put her in the movie. You fucking idiots. Nobody sounds like that Punisher run where he was relieved that his family died, so he had an excuse to kill en masse. It's not, there's nothing like that happened. Like, his family doesn't die or anything. It was just like, speaking of John Wick, why is Matrix 4 a thing? I have no idea. I have no interest in it, I'll be honest. Might be good, I'll never know. I was done with Matrix almost 20 years ago. You can't spell fun without F-U. That is true. True statement. All right, then from there we get we go into the realm of horror. A Quiet Place Part 2. Now, I reviewed the first Quiet Place a few years ago when it came out, and I really, really liked it. I thought it was a kind of a cool concept for a horror movie, and I'm a big fan of artistic expression through limitation, which is not the norm this day in filmmaking, with everything being CGI and you can do whatever you want. But what I loved about the situation where if you make noise, monsters will come kill you, is that it created a lot of dramatic, intense situations once you establish those rules. And if you follow the rules to the letter, it's going to create a lot of great drama. And I thought the first Quiet Place did that really, really well. And I'm happy to report that the sequel did it just as well. And it was a more than worthwhile sequel that actually splits up the surviving members of the family from the first film to have their own little stories. The sister goes off trying to accomplish her mission. I'm trying not to give away too many spoilers here. And the mom is left taking care of the son who got injured by a bear trap. And they get stuck in a situation that, again, is very tense and very dramatic, as staying quiet in certain situations proves to be exceedingly hard to do. And what I really loved about the movie was how the kids take what they learned from their father, who passed away in the first movie, played by, I forget his name, but it was Jim from The Office, who's also the director and I think came up with the concept. And if so, it's like, this dude might have a future in filmmaking behind the camera, because I think this Quiet Place thing is a really neat idea, and so far we've gotten 2 very, very cool movies out of it. Just by the look on Keanu Reeves' face in his newer movies, he's just working for a paycheck at this point. He's kind of always had like that kind of stoic face. Never seen John Wick, which is a sin. I really like the John Wick movies. A Quiet Place? You mean Tremors? I gotta rewatch Tremors. You know, there's all these sequels to Tremors. I've only watched the original. Maybe I should do a Tremors marathon or something. I think I'm the only person who didn't love A Quiet Place. The birth scene took me right out of it. See, that was my favorite scene in the movie. Because it was like, oh my god, she can't give birth now. There's a monster in the house. They should make a new movie. If you make noise, then nerds will appear. That does sound horrifying. John Krasinski, there you go. Yes, Keanu Reeves was the Evel Knievel toy from Toy Story 4. I wasn't the biggest fan of Toy Story 4. I thought it was okay. I didn't love it. Okay, so Quiet Place, big double thumbs up for me. I really, really liked it. Next up was something I didn't love. I saw it on Disney Plus. My girlfriend wanted to see it. Cruella. Now, I knew this was going to be bad. How did I know it was going to be bad? Because Disney, whenever they do a movie like this, like Maleficent, or like most of their live-action remakes of things like Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast, they're bad. They're just generally bad. Honestly, I think the best one I saw was Christopher Robin, and nobody saw that one. That was the one that nobody saw. The one that was probably the best one and the cutest one, probably because it actually went to some degree to recapture the original spirit of Winnie the Pooh. And had an interesting question: what happens when Christopher Robin grows up, and when imagination dies, and all that other stuff. So it was like that was actually a fairly cute movie, but most of the rest of their live action remakes are terrible. And doing a backstory for Cruella to me is completely unnecessary because I don't need to know why she's a crazy fur loving psycho that kills dogs. I just don't need to know why. We get it all. Everything I need to know about Cruella is in the animated film. And unless you have an interesting story to tell, it's not going to work. And sure enough, they didn't have an interesting story to tell, and it didn't work. A lot of people are comparing this movie to Joker. And my comment is, it's Joker if Joker did everything wrong. What do I mean by that? Joker gave us a backstory that led to the main character, Arthur, becoming a psychotic, murdering clown. He became the Joker. By the end of the movie, he was the Joker that we kind of know from the comics. Not fully developed yet, but the murdering psychopath part of the character was established. Cruella, in this movie, never gets to a point where she kills dogs for fur. We never get to that point. And that is essential to Cruella's character, and it completely ruins the whole point of the character if you're going to do a backstory on Cruella, which, as I've said, is already completely unnecessary. It's not a faithful telling of the character that we know. And so it doesn't feel like a backstory. This just feels like revisionist history. So the movie didn't work for me. It's the same shit that they pulled with Maleficent, basically. Where I will give the movie some praise is that Emma Stone and Emma Thompson, who play off of each other throughout the film as rivals, their performances are so wacky and bonkers that they're the best things in the movie. Like, watching their performances is kind of fun and keeps the movie from being boring, at least. It's still a poorly written mess, but at least they're fun to watch whenever they're on screen and they're given something to do. And there are some cool, like, visual eye candy moments, like Cruella's garbage truck dress and Cruella's concert that she does in the middle of the movie. Like, that stuff is, like, some cool visual eye candy. But the story, again, is what drags it down. And just doesn't work for me. Didn't work for me, brother. That's how I feel about Cruella. But it's not the worst one that Disney's done. That's for damn sure. But it's also unnecessary, didn't need to be made, waste of money. If you're looking for something to watch on Disney Plus, just watch 101 Dalmatians. Watch the live action one with Glenn Close as Cruella. Just watch that movie. You'll be better off. That's the other thing. They already did a live action Cruella, and she was great. My favorite Keanu Reeves action film is Speed. Speed's great. I love Speed. Cruella might be the best live-action Disney remake in the sense that it wasn't an abomination, but it was bad. Yeah, it's not the worst thing ever made, so step up, maybe, because most of the other ones were like some of the worst things I'd ever seen. No, I agree. I prefer like with mysterious characters like Joker, like Cruella, like I like a certain level of mystery surrounding them. And I don't need to know everything about them because I feel like everything I need to know is in that first movie. And like I said, if you don't have an interesting story to tell, then don't make the movie. People were saying that Cruella was just Harley Quinn / Joker presented by Disney, rated PG-13. I understand the comparisons, but it's just never... yeah, I guess that's a fair comparison now that I think about it. Has there ever been a superhero movie where the hero is taken out and the villain is lost ever? Not a movie, as far as I know, but they did do that episode of Batman the Animated Series where some schlub thought he killed Batman and the Joker got depressed. It could have just been a new IP, but they put the Cruella name. Yeah, that's a lot of what... Yeah, that's the thing. This could have been its own movie, but they just had to slap Cruella on it. Disney logic. Let's take Cruella DeVille and have her be a dog lover who puts Dalmatian puppies to... gives Dalmatian puppies to people in the post-credit. Yeah, that made no sense. Why is she giving puppies to these people? It made no sense. One of my former counselors told me that when he first saw The Terminator as a kid, the scene with the T-1000 cuts off his damaged eyeball freaked him out a bit. It's a freaky scene. I mean, you can tell that it's fake now, but at the time, it was kind of cool the way they shot it. The Conjuring is the new Paranormal Activity as far as horror franchises go. They just don't know when to quit. We're going to be talking about The Conjuring in a little bit. That's actually next. Just getting caught up on these comments. Disney really needs to get it in their heads they will never have a Wicked. I agreed. Sid the Squid. Yep, that was the character, the man that almost killed Batman. Okay, so next up is, thanks to the Double X Prince for basically setting me up here. The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. The third Conjuring movie in the latest entry in the Conjuring universe set of movies. My girlfriend and I actually marathoned all of the Conjuring movies before watching this one. I had only seen Conjuring 1 and 2. I didn't see the Annabelle movies. I didn't see The Nun. And I didn't see the Curse of La Llorona, or whatever it's called. I like Conjuring 1 and 2. Let me pull something up now. I'm thinking just to make sure I've got my information right. Did I say them all? Okay. All right. I think we watched them all. Yeah, we watched them all. Okay. Sorry. So we watched all the Conjuring movies, and like I said, I had not seen the Annabelle movies. I had not seen The Nun. I had not seen Curse of La Llorona. So we kind of blasted through all of those. Didn't like most of them. I thought Annabelle 2 and 3 were solid. The first one was awful. I didn't like The Nun at all. I thought that was stupid. And Curse of La Llorona. Again, like The Nun and Curse of La Llorona had like good setups, but they weren't executed real well at all. So, there are those. So Conjuring 3, I wasn't sure what to expect out of it. James Wan, I don't believe, was involved in this one. He had directed 1 and 2 and basically got this whole Conjuring universe started, focusing on the Warrens, the paranormal, I guess you would call them paranormal detectives, investigators, something like that. Some might call them scam artists. The Warrens, a couple that have their own little museum of all the artifacts they've collected from all the cases that they've done and all these weird little ghost stories. And this one focuses on a real-life court case where, for the first time ever, the defense of basically The Devil Made Me Do It was used as a defense. And it was used as the backbone for this movie. And they used, based on a true story. Now, Conjuring 1 and 2 were presented in a way where it was like, the whole based on a true story thing. I could kind of, and let me go back even further. Like, I'm not going to say that I don't believe in ghosts and that ghosts don't exist. My stance is that I don't know. I've seen some weird shit in my day, never anything paranormal, but Who knows? Enough people have seen some shit. Maybe there is something out there. I don't know. I don't pretend to have all the answers. But these, like, based on a true story thing, I felt like 1 and 2 did a better job of, like, making it feel like it was something that could potentially happen and presenting the events in a way that could have potentially happened. This movie fell apart right at the very beginning, where they are just doing a straight-up ripoff of The Exorcist, right down to copying shots from the original Exorcist. And I don't think I've ever seen a movie completely lose me in the first scene that fast. But when they started doing all the Exorcist ripoff crap, the movie completely lost me, and I just made fun of it the entire time. And the movie just keeps snowballing and getting stupider and stupider and stupider to where they introduce a supervillain, a witch, who's like making everything happen. And she possesses the husband at one point, and he chases the wife around like it's The Shining. And it looks stupid. It felt stupid. And I was watching it with my girlfriend, and she was getting scared through most of it. But I just kept cracking jokes. And the joke I kept going back to, I just turned to her and goes, remember, based on a true story. Like, this happened. Like, I'm sure that all of this happened the way it's laid out in the movie. And the movie completely lost me. And so Conjuring 3, not as good as Conjuring 1 and 2. It was a pretty stupid movie, but it was good for a laugh. It was good for a laugh, I will say that. I did laugh at it and I had fun with it. Would I ever watch again? Probably not. I think maybe The Conjuring is kind of running on empty at this point, because I can't imagine, like, what else is there they could possibly do with this. Who knows? But yeah, it's a shame, because I did enjoy the first two, but this third one was just too stupid to take seriously, which is a huge problem. And sometimes, you can go for schlock, but I think what really bothered me about this one, A, the Exorcist ripoff stuff, and B, the whole, like, it's based on a true story, ooh, and it's like, I don't believe for 1 second that any of this happened as it is being described right now. Fernando Estrada, welcome aboard. Was Conjuring the movie with the Darth Maul ghost, or was that another franchise? I don't know which one is the Darth Maul ghost off the top of my head. I'm just going to say it, the Warrens were scam artists. They could be. I don't know enough about them. I don't know. It's easy. And people who profit off of that type of stuff, I tend to lean on the side that they were probably scam artists. How do you feel about the new Candyman movie? If you've seen it yet, I personally hated it. I did not see it. I heard it was bad, and that depresses me, because I was really excited about a new Candyman movie. Because the first one is so good. And when I heard they got Tony Todd back, I'm like, great, we're doing this. And people I trust told me that it was really bad, which is a shame. End of Days, I've never seen that one. Of all the Arnold movies I've watched, I've never seen that one. Okay, so moving right along, we're going to another Disney Plus movie that I watched, and this is Pixar's latest movie, Luca, which I've described it to people as Little Mermaid meets One Crazy Summer, which is a 80s comedy that I reviewed last year when I was doing my weekly movie reviews. And yeah, it's basically about a mermaid fish boy, or whatever. I guess we'll call them sea monsters, because that's what they call them in the movie. Sea monsters that transform into humans when they come to the surface, and this boy who's kind of nailed down by his family, who doesn't want him to go exploring or seeing what's above in the world, but he wants more, like the Little Mermaid. And he befriends a boy that is also a sea creature, but goes up on the surface, and they transform to humans when they go into the surface. They end up getting embroiled in like this children's drama over a race, and there's a bully involved, and they get acclimated to the human world, and they love it more and more, and they want to stay, but then their different desires and different wants causes frictions among the friend group. And really, what I really enjoyed about this is that it was a sweet, charming coming-of-age story that it was about friendship and all sorts of other things. And like I said, the whole like Little Mermaid meets One Crazy Summer comparison is apt. Another thing I really appreciated about it was the Italian setting, which was great. I am part Italian, so it was cool to see that. represented in a film without being a complete joke of like bippity bobbity. There was a little bit of that, but it wasn't fully on with that. It was a little bit more legitimate, grounded, and natural. And I thought all the characters were cute and fun, and it was Luca was a fun character to follow as he became more and more invested in what's going on in the human world. And it was nice to see a movie that was just kind of a nice, down to basics, small scale, emotional little story that was just a bunch of kids having fun for the summer. That's essentially what the movie amounted to. It's just a bunch of kids having fun for the summer. And it was nice to see something like that in a world full of movies where the world is coming to an end. It was actually kind of refreshing to see something that was a little bit more of a back to basics, cute kids movie. And if you have children, I highly recommend Luca. I thought it was absolutely adorable. Oh, Insidious! Yeah, I should rewatch that. I haven't seen it in a long time. Do you remember that SmackDown episode that Arnold guest starred in 1999? I do. Tony Todd is voicing Venom in the new Spider-Man game. I approve. Why did Disney Plus make us pay for Mulan, Black Widow, and Cruella, but Luca and Soul were free? Well, joke's on them. I didn't pay for Mulan. I didn't watch it because I didn't watch it. I didn't pay for Black Widow because I didn't watch it. And my girlfriend bought Cruella on her account, so I put no money towards any of those movies, and I got the better movie, Luca. Is Soul any good? I didn't see Soul. That one I missed. That one was missed. Okay, now we're going into the realm of action. A action movie vehicle for one Jason Statham, who is the king of, like, stupid, dumb, explosive action movies, and I'm here for that. This one is actually not the typical Jason Statham movie, though. This one's a little bit more grounded, a little bit more down to earth, and has a little bit more of an emotional core to it. And it was really fun to actually watch this movie and discover what Jason Statham's character is doing and what his motivation is and what his background is. And essentially, as we find out, and I'm trying to avoid spoilers, is that he joins this security team to get revenge on certain people, but he's trying to keep his identity a secret and his certain special skills a secret. We find out everything about his motivation throughout the course of the film, but it makes for a really fun, serious action movie and not the typical schlock that you would expect out of a Jason Statham effort. So, if you're looking for a good action movie, I recommend Wrath of Man. It's pretty fun, and Statham is exciting and badass as always. It's just a really good time. If you're looking for a good action movie, I recommend Wrath of Man. Soul is good, especially the music. That's good to hear. I want a Heathcliff movie to be made. They've already made one. Back in the 80s, they made a Heathcliff movie that was basically just a clip show of the cartoon, but they did make one. But your girl is your future wife. No, I'm working on it. So technically, you still paid. No, I didn't. No, because it was on her parents' shared family account. I wasn't on that, so yeah, no, she paid. Actually, I think her dad may have paid for it. I'm not sure. I don't know. Did you watch Hobbs and Shaw? I did. I enjoyed it. That was good, dumb fun. I did enjoy Hobbs and Shaw. Idris Elba kind of made the movie for me. Cruella was a fan fiction movie. Probably was. You didn't say the movie that... Oh, I didn't? Wrath of Man. Yeah. I'm sorry, did I not say the title of the movie? Yeah, Wrath of Man. That's the Jason Statham movie I was talking about. Wrath of Man. Highly recommended. All right, next up is M. Night Shyamalan's latest effort, which I saw in theaters. Now, M. Night Shyamalan is a man who's carried quite a dubious reputation, but he's kind of made a comeback in recent years, starting with The Visit, which people seem to like. Then he made Split, which I thought was pretty good. I was surprised at how solid it was. And then they did the follow-up to that, which was a follow-up to both his classic film Unbreakable and Split, and that was the movie Glass, which was met with some mixed reviews. I thought it was mostly okay. I didn't think it was bad. Some people said it was terrible. I thought it was mostly okay. And again, out of M. Night Shyamalan's library, okay is actually acceptable at this point. And I'm going to say the exact same thing about his latest effort, Old, which has a lot of great ideas. The whole idea that this family and a bunch of other characters are trapped on a beach that is slowly or quickly actually aging them, and they don't know what's causing it or what's going on or why this is happening to them, and they try to get off the beach, but they can't escape, and they have to get off there. There's a timetable. They have to get off there before they all die of whatever's doing this to them. And you get to see the kids age, and you get to see the parents become like senior citizens. And there are bad moments in there, so we'll call them M. Night Shyamalan-isms. Like clunky dialogue and poor logic for certain things, like why wouldn't their hair go gray if they're growing old, or why wouldn't their fingernails get longer. There's a throwaway line that tries to explain it, but it felt like, like didn't really buy it, and it kind of kills the image because you don't really get the sense that the parents are getting older because their hair doesn't change. So it felt like a bad creative decision to me, but there's also some examples of pretty clunky dialogue as well. However, what I will say is that the ideas on display and some of the drama and the tenseness that it creates lend itself to making the movie okay. It's not a fiasco like some of Shyamalan's other films. It's not The Village. It's not what was that elevator movie he did, Devil? It's not that. It's not The Happening, which was his funniest movie by far. It's nowhere near as bad as all of those. It's got some of his fingerprints on it, and it drags the movie down somewhat. However, I think there's nothing that happens that completely breaks the really good ideas that the movie has. I wish the movie was in the hands of like a more competent filmmaker. Let me put it this way. I wish that M. Night Shyamalan pitched the idea to somebody and then somebody else directed it. That's what I wish had happened, but instead we get M. Night Shyamalan directing the film. That turned out okay. Probably could have been better, but for what it was, I'll take passable from Shyamalan at this point, considering like he had made so many bad movies. Yeah, he was supposed to be the next Spielberg at one point. That is absolutely true. What are your thoughts on the Garfield-Heathcliff rivalry? It's an unfortunate thing where technically, as far as I know, my understanding is that Heathcliff actually came first. However, Garfield is better. Like, it's undeniable. Garfield's better. And you can say it's like, yeah, well, this one came first, and this one, Heathcliff came first, and Garfield is the plagiarizer. I'm like, yeah, but Garfield is better. So that's unfortunate, but it's the truth. Isn't M. Night Shyamalan known for twists in his stories? Yes, he is. He is absolutely known. What a twist. Oh my god, Old was horrible. A prime example of how themes aren't good enough to support a movie if everything else isn't working. No, I agree the movie has problems. I wouldn't say horrible, though. Maybe I go into Shyamalan films with a lowered expectation, but I don't think it was one of his worst by a mile. Like there were actually some parts in the movie that worked for me. Like I'm trying not to give away spoilers, but there was the guy that was succumbing to like Alzheimer's while he was still like not that old. So in the movie, do they have bad teeth? Again, that's another one of those things where it's like they're not fully... that's another one of those things that I was thinking about where it's like, wait, how are their teeth not rotting away? Like there are certain things they just didn't really like think about when they were putting this thing together, and they were just kind of like hand-waving it and expecting us not to think about it. It's not who does it first, it's who does it best. Agreed. Lots call Zack Snyder the modern-day Stanley Kubrick. I've never heard that, but that's crazy. I've never heard that, but that's crazy. Look, Zack Snyder, he's made some movies that I enjoyed. And to his credit, the Justice League movie was pretty good, so I'll give him that much at least. All right, now next up is a movie that seemed to get really well reviewed by critics, but I I did not enjoy, and I was massively disappointed in, because I really wanted to like this movie. The Green Knight, based on the poem of Arthurian lore. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an Arthurian scholar or expert on Arthurian lore, but I'm familiar enough with it to where I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I can jump into it and pretty much understand what's going on. So I was excited about this movie. I'm like, okay, cool, a little piece of Arthurian lore focusing on Sir Gawain. Now, I've never read the poem that this movie is based on or it's adapted from, so I can't judge it as an adaptation. I can judge it as a movie, though, and I think it has a great setup that I loved, and I was like, okay, oh boy, this is going to be good. Like, this movie's going to be, I think this is going to be a really fucking good movie. And then the story kicks in, and it is not only boring, it is also, like, makes the main character unlikable. Now, my understanding is, and again, I'm trying not to go into the world of, like, judging it as an adaptation, because I've never read the actual poem, but my understanding is, in the original poem, Sir Gawain takes on all these tasks, and he does in the movie as well. He takes on all these tasks, and in the poem he succeeds until he gets to the Green Knight at the end. In the movie, he fails all of his tasks and looks like a really bad knight until he gets to the Green Knight. So, to me, what it did for me while I was watching the movie is that it made him thoroughly unlikable and thoroughly, it made it feel like nothing was really happening or nothing was really being achieved. It was just a bunch of stuff happens. For example, there's a point where he gets a fox as a companion, and I thought, oh, he's going to have a cute little animal sidekick. And then there are scenes where it feels like the fox disappears, and he's gone for really long stretches, and then he just starts talking out of nowhere. And I'm like, we didn't really build up to that now, did we? And stylistically, there's a lot of things in the film that look good, and there's some good acting moments from various members of the cast. Not from King Arthur. That guy sounded like he was struggling to breathe the entire movie. I was like, I don't know who told him to do that, but this is one of those movies I really, really wanted to like, and I was trying to like it so hard, but it just couldn't grab me the entire time. Outside of like a handful of like really cool moments, but it just couldn't sustain any momentum. And I can say this, I went to go see the movie with my girlfriend and her father. Both of them fell asleep during the movie. And I was like, oh man, this is not good. So, not a fun time at the movies. And probably my pick for most disappointing movie of the year, because I saw the poster, it looked really cool. People told me about it, and it sounded really cool. And then I saw it. I was massively disappointed in it. All right, Kogan, good night. I struggled with The Green Knight, I'll admit. I'm not sure if I liked it or not. Yeah, okay, as far as Kubrick movies, I highly recommend 2001 and A Clockwork Orange. I think both are really good. I've got a good one. Did their boobs sag? If so, why not? Again, great question. See, FT, you should have been the one directing Old. You would have caught all this stuff. Why do some people feel the need to try to like a movie? It's either good or it's not. I can speak for me in this case with The Green Knight. I wanted to like it so hard because I was kind of excited for it. And when it didn't live up, I was just disappointed. And I was like, no, but I built it up so much in my head. And it just didn't live up. So, what can you do? You know it's bad when the movie puts you to sleep. Yeah, for sure. All right, next movie is one that I really enjoyed, and this was one that I got an early screening to, an early online screening, and I checked it out online just on a whim, and that would be Coda, a movie that is, I believe, is exclusive to Apple Plus right now, which is not a streaming service I have or most people I know has, but I decided to check it out just out of morbid curiosity. Didn't know anything about the movie going into it, and turns out it's like Luca, it's a nice little coming-of-age story. And it's about this teenage girl who is the only person in her immediate family that isn't deaf. She is a CODA, a Children of Deaf... let me look that up again. There's an acronym for it. blah, blah, blah. Child of deaf adults. Okay, so that's what it means. That's what the title means, but it's also got kind of a double meaning because she also has an interest in singing and in music, and coda is a term used to signify the end of a musical piece, I believe. I'm no musical scholar either, but my understanding is that what it means. And that could be read into a way as that this is kind of the end of her life as she knows it, because she wants to move on, go to a good school, and pursue music, which is not something that her family can enjoy with her for obvious reasons because they're all deaf. And what I really liked about this movie, and I guess one could say that it's predictable because once you know what the setup is, you pretty much know exactly where the movie's going to go and how it's going to play out, but everything was handled so well in the movie that I wanted to see that stuff play out, so I'm okay with it. And I think it's like, predictability isn't necessarily a bad thing if you want to see the thing unfold. So, I will say this about this character: in lesser hands and with lesser writing, this character could have easily been unlikable, because the movie really covers like her frustrations growing up with a family that really depends on her, because she has to help her father with the family business. They're fishers, and she has to help out with that because he can't understand. He can't hear what everybody's saying. He can't hear alerts when they're given to him, and all sorts of other things. So she's got to be. And there's a part of her that feels like she's stuck. And again, with lesser writing, lesser directing, and lesser acting, I think this character could have come off as really unlikable, like she was hating on her family of deaf people. But the way they pulled it off, I felt her frustration was handled so perfectly and believably, and it was something where, like, pulling from my own life, and I don't want to elaborate too much on my personal life, but I grew up in a family where I was the youngest of 3 brothers, but my oldest brother had autism, and the second brother had Down syndrome. So here I am as the youngest brother, and I'm the one that has to step up and basically be the older brother to both them and my younger sister who came later. So I had to be treated like the older brother even though I was number 3. And a brilliant move that the movie does is that she's the younger sibling. She has an older brother, and his frustration comes out because he doesn't like being dependent on his younger sister, and he's constantly saying, it's like, we don't need you, I can do this all myself, and all this other stuff. And that frustration comes across really believably and really well. And again, given the way my life was, it was something that I could definitely identify with. And I think her frustration, while also maintaining her responsibility and her love for her family, and the guilt that she kind of felt for wanting to leave and pursue her music, I thought all of that was represented beautifully as well. And it gets to a point where they're building up to this big duet that she's supposed to do on stage as part of a musical show. And her family's there in the audience. Again, I won't give it away, but the way they handled that moment really caught me off guard and was wonderful, the way that they handled it. I actually had like a little tear in my eye, the way that they presented it. I thought it came off really well. And then the big climax is her audition to get into the school that she's trying to get into, which one person criticized the movie a little bit that I saw online, where she said, look, if all this stuff happened during your audition, you would have been flunked out. You wouldn't have gotten it. No chance. So, like, she basically fucked up before she walked in the door. But let's, feel good movie. Let's put all that stuff aside for a minute. It's a very satisfying ending, and again, there's the sadness there because ultimately she's going to leave her family, and that's what she wants, but she also maintains her really strong bond with her family as well, and there's those great emotional payoffs and all these great moments created. And the movie is portrayed using legitimate deaf actors, which I think adds a level of legitimacy to the film. It isn't just people pretending to be deaf, or people who learned how to do sign language, 3 weeks before filming started or anything like that. These are people that legitimately know how to do these things and live that life of being deaf. And I'm not saying that people who aren't disabled can't play disabled people. I thought Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman was fantastic. And I believed he was blind the entire movie. But I think having deaf actors there added a level of legitimacy and believability to their performances that may or may not have been there otherwise, depending on any other selections for actors that could have been chosen. So I love all the family interactions. There's some great funny moments. There's some great emotional moments. And again, a lot of it's done through sign language, which they do subtitle, so don't worry about that. But I just really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was probably my favorite movie of the year. It's charming, it's emotional, it's heartwarming, and it's a great, fun coming-of-age story. And it's a feel-good movie that I wholeheartedly recommend. So yeah, if you're going to see one movie on this list, Coda is the one I recommend. Now, getting Apple Plus might be a bit of a stretch for some people because I don't know any human being that has Apple Plus. I was blessed enough to get invited to an early screening, which I just took advantage of. But if you have the opportunity to see Coda, it gets a huge thumbs up for me. I highly recommend it. Kubrick movies are good to look at, but they're boring. It depends on the movie. I mean, I can understand why people say that, but I love A Clockwork Orange. I loved The Shining. I love the first half of Full Metal Jacket. Well, once they get out of the boot camp, I stop caring, but... Always underestimate stuff, that way you'll never be disappointed. Fair advice. I appreciate that. Alright, so now that Coda's out of the way, let's do something a little bit more into the big budget realm. The Suicide Squad, the second Suicide Squad movie, which they're both trying to distance itself from the old movie because it was such a fiasco editing-wise, but also they want to make sure Harley Quinn is in there because everybody loves Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. So it's it's this weird we're ignoring the first movie, but we're also keeping continuity with the first movie. It's kind of this weird half a dozen, six in the other type of deal that's really weird, but hey, what are you going to do? A little awkward, but I feel as far as capturing the spirit of the Suicide Squad and what you would expect out of a Suicide Squad movie, I think this movie does it. I think James Gunn brings the right level of chaos and brutality to a story like this. I think he has plenty of fun with it, especially with characters like Polka Dot Man and Ratcatcher and kind of sillier characters like that. And, of course, my favorite was King Shark, voiced by Sylvester Stallone. I love Stallone, and I always gravitate to the non-human characters. And King Shark is just my boy. He's just he's this big, dumb oaf, voiced by Sylvester Stallone. What's not to love? And they get some great visual, emotional moments with King Shark, where you get a sense of what he's thinking, how he's feeling, even if he's not talking. And I think they did some great stuff with him. Margot Robbie, once again, very good as Harley Quinn. Made even better by the fact that she's actually in a good movie for once. Because she was in the first Suicide Squad movie, which was a mess. Just a complete and utter mess. And she was the best part of that movie. And there's also... she was in that Birds of Prey movie, which I heard was really bad. People told me it was bad. I didn't bother with it. I didn't go see it. But it's nice to see Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn in an actual good movie, even if she was divided from the Suicide Squad for most of the movie. But yeah, I think the cast is fun. Idris Elba's in it, which is always a plus. I'll never object to having Idris Elba in a movie. And yeah, it was a good, fun time. I feel like maybe they thought they were going to do R-rated Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't think they quite got to that level. But what is in the movie is a lot of fun, and it is crazy and chaotic. And, of course, the ending, which I think most people know by now, but I won't spoil it just in case, is a nice, crazy, fun, chaotic climax. And it's, it makes for a really fun movie. And I will say this. This is probably the most I have ever enjoyed John Cena. I thought his deadpan delivery as Peacemaker was just hilarious. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm actually enjoying John Cena. What the hell's going on right now? So John Cena, he's one of those guys that's like, dude, stay in movies. We don't need you to come back to wrestling. You can stay in movies. We're fine. I'm fine. You're fine. Just keep doing Peacemaker stuff and we'll be gold. All right. Love it better than the first, although you can really tell in places that Bloodsport was meant to be Deadshot. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Which makes me wonder if Bloodsport's Fear of Rats was also meant for Deadshot. I prefer King Shark from the Harley Quinn animated series, but I love King Shark here. I love King Shark, like any version of King Shark. In the Harley Quinn show, isn't he like a computer hacker or something? I watched season 1 of that, but it's been a while. My memory's a little fuzzy on it. Ratcatcher was my favorite. My girlfriend and I actually saw the actress in LA weeks before the film came out. That's awesome. Of course Patrick would enjoy the superhero movie with the kaiju villain. Guilty as charged. Elba was so fun in this. I really want him to get a film franchise of his own. Yeah, that would be nice. Was it better than Birds of Prey because that movie was a feminist infomercial? I didn't see Birds of Prey, so I can't say, but from what I've heard, it sounded like it was better. Who was better, Batista as Drax or John Cena as Peacemaker? Ooh, good question. It's a good. I think Drax was in the better movie, but I think I'm gonna go with Peacemaker on that one. I thought he was funnier. DC animated movie universe is great. Yeah, I watched a bunch of them last year when COVID first started. I was like, man, these movies are really good. Death of Superman was really fucking good. This movie is the only Cena heel turn we'll ever get. Don't spoil it, dude. I just spoiled it by reading it out loud. King Shark in season 2 of The Flash needs to be brought to film. Sure, I'd be down. I saw one scene from the Harley Quinn show where Harley kills a bunch of Mr. Freeze's henchmen with her skates. I don't think I saw that part. Anyway, moving on from Suicide Squad, we've got Free Guy, which is another movie, a Ryan Reynolds vehicle where he stars as a video game NPC that gains sentience and starts playing by his own rules within the video game. And this uncovers a whole conspiracy going on in the outside world regarding the game and all the things that entangled. And of course, he falls in love with one of the users and all this other stuff. So basically, Free Guy at its core, it's another one of those stories about a guy realizing that his world is fake and then coming to terms with that and deciding what he wants to do with his life and gaining freedom. We've seen that in better movies like The Truman Show and The Matrix, but I did think this movie was fun. I thought the world created in the video game was very funny and kind of cute and charming, and basically it's GTA. Excuse me, that's basically the world, and these NPCs have to live in that world day in and day out constantly. And they, for the most part, don't see any, problem with it. They just kind of go about their days. And Ryan Reynolds, I wasn't sure if he could pull off an aw shucks type of guy without coming across as, insincere and, Deadpool doing it. But I thought for the most part he pulled it off pretty well, and I think he's pretty funny and charming in this. And I think he helps carry the movie well, and it creates a lot of little funny and sweet moments. Especially, I don't know why, the moment where he goes out on the video game date with the user that he falls in love with was probably my favorite scene in the movie because it was both funny and really sweet at the same time. And there's a lot of really good video gamey type of things and moments, and there's also a ton of cameos in it. I think The Rock had a cameo in it as a bank robber at one point, and Channing Tatum has a really funny cameo in it. And there's this also fun thing where you'll see a character in the video game and then you see the user playing him, and there's an obvious disconnect between the two. And it's got a lot of fun moments in it, a lot of jokes that mostly work. It's a fun movie. It's just a really fun time. And another point in the movie's favor, it's not based on any pre-existing brand. It's just its own thing. And I'm like, cool, that's great. We need more of that in this world. Instead of rebooting the holy hell out of everything. Free Guy was fun. Check out the Hitman's Bodyguard films. If you like Ryan Reynolds, you like those movies. Okay, I have not seen those movies. I will take your advice. I watched The Truman Show in either middle or high school. Can't remember at the moment. Yeah, it's an older movie. I think I was in high school when that came out, I want to say. All right, we're coming close to the end here, guys. God, it's almost 1 o'clock. God damn. All right, Batman: The Long Halloween, parts 1 and 2, the latest efforts from DC's animated films. We've got Injustice coming out later this year, I think, but Batman: The Long Halloween is one. And actually, let me go get something real quick. I will be right back. Helpful visual aid. Okay. So Batman: The Long Halloween is based on, and of course I should note that this animated movie is actually 2 movies. They split it into 2 parts because there's a lot of material to get through in this. But it's an adaptation of what is probably my favorite Batman graphic novel, The Long Halloween, which I'm probably going to reread now that I've watched the movies. But I love it because it's a Batman detective story where murders of gangsters are taking place and they're happening on holidays, and Batman, along with Commissioner Gordon and, Jim Gordon, he's not commissioner yet, but, and Harvey Dent have to figure out what's going on, who's committing the murders, and how to stop them, and how it ties into the Mafia and everything else. And a lot of other Batman's rogues galleries get involved in the situation, namely the Joker, Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and various others. It's a delightful comic, and to me, it's just represents everything that I love about Batman. So when I heard they were doing an animated adaptation, naturally I was a little excited for it. But then there was also the part of my brain that was like, okay, yeah, but I also remember what they did to the Killing Joke, and that one was just baffling. So, but then I remember what they did to The Dark Knight Returns, and that one was great. So, who knows? And then there's other ones like Batman Hush and All-Star Superman, which were more pretty good, kind of middle of the road a little bit, not perfect, but still solid. So it could be anything, who knows? I'm happy to report that The Long Halloween parts 1 and 2 are great and capture the spirit of the graphic novel for the most part, with very good animation, great voice cast, and a mostly faithful telling of the Long Halloween story. I think I like the ending in the graphic novel better, but for the most part, it captures the spirit of the graphic novel exceptionally well, and I really enjoyed it. So it is long, though. Like I said, it's 2 movies. They divided it into 2 parts. It's a long viewing, but it's a long Halloween. I highly recommend checking this out if you like the DC animated movies, and especially if you liked the more straight adaptation style of something like The Dark Knight Returns. I think you will probably like this one as well. I thought it was great, and it's perfect to watch now because Halloween is right around the corner, and I think it's definitely worth a look. All right, how many movies left? We're on the last one after Batman. Patrick looking thick as fuck. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I need to work on the tummy. The tummy tum. I bought RoboCop and RoboCop 2 on VHS today at a secondhand store for 50 cents. Awesome. The Long Halloween films have the problem of Part 1 and Part 2 films have, where Part 1 is way too much setup, and then Part 2 is a lot of blasting in your face. See, I watched them both back-to-back. I waited until Part 2 came out, and then I just watched them both back-to-back. So I watched it that way, and so for me, it worked just great. But yeah, if you watch Part 1 and it's all just set up, that might be annoying. But yeah, I just watched both films back-to-back, and it worked great for me. All right, so let's wrap this up. We've got a movie I just watched this weekend, recent release from director James Wan, his latest horror movie, Malignant. Now, Red Letter Media just posted their review of it. I watched the first few minutes of it before I went live. I will say this. I think you should absolutely see this movie. It is a wild, wild movie. And it really reminded me of like old schlocky horror movies from the 80s, where it was like they would just come up with a crazy idea and then just do the crazy idea. And I think Red Letter Media kind of hit the nail on the head. Is like they can't tell exactly what the intent is, if it was meant to be this wacky or if we're supposed to take it seriously. I don't know. And I don't know. I think might be a little bit of both. And I don't want to say too much because I don't want to like go into spoiler territory. I will say that the reveal was easy to figure out. I guessed it like almost immediately, like what is actually going on in the story. But once you get to the part where the reveal, another fly. Once you get to the part where the reveal happens, shit goes so bonkers that it is amazing to watch. And Malignant, I'll be honest, is one of the most fun movies I've watched this year. Whether or not it's good or bad, I'll leave up to you. But I will say this at the very least. I had a blast watching it, and I will never forget this movie. There is some clunky dialogue, a little bit of clunky acting, maybe the writing needed a little bit more tightening up, and some of the more technical aspects, but the concept and the ideas that they have are so nutty that if you're on board with the insanity, this thing is great. It is just a delightful, wacky ride with a very weird concept. And I think the movies that Red Letter Media compared it to, I think are more than accurate. Like, more than accurate. Like, it's almost spot on, like, the movies that they compared it to. So, if you're looking for something memorable, weird, and wacky, Malignant is absolutely worth your time, and it's on HBO Max. So, check that the fuck out. Okay, so that was the last movie I was reviewing. How are you all doing? Yeah, it is past 1 o'clock where I am. How are you all feeling? What's going on? Are we all doing well here? Okay. Well, I've talked long enough. I've rambled for over 2 hours. What are we looking at? 2 hours and 15 minutes. 2 hours and 16 minutes. So I think I'm done. Thanks again, everybody, for staying up with me and doing another one of these fun live streams. I had a blast. Hope you all did as well. I know I did a lot of rambling, but that's what I tend to do on these things. And that is it for me. So I will see you all later. I don't know when I'm going to do another one of these. We'll see. But for right now,